If you had to say anything to yourself when you were 16, what would you say?
That's the most difficult question, because I don't regret anything that I did. I really don't. What I do regret is hanging with the wrong people. So the best advice I could give to myself would be mind your surroundings and choose better friends.
He was a good kid.
That crowd that he was with, nothing that I knew about them was good.
My baby was in jail and he didn't do anything.
He set up the meet involving a drug deal.
They treated Sammy like he was a 40-year-old guy.
In the 1980s, there was a spike in juvenile homicide rates. And a professor down at Princeton, John DiIulio, looked at this spike and made a prediction that in the coming era, he predicted we were going to see this uptick in homicides and violence by juveniles.
A super predator is a young juvenile criminal who is so impulsive, so remorseless, that he can kill, rape, maim without giving it a second thought.
He described the super predators as this group of teens who were brutally violent and remorseless and needed to be addressed. The result of his study and the creation of this label created a moral panic.
They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy. We can talk about why they ended up that way.
Governments across the country responded by increasing juvenile justice laws.
There are no violent offenses that are juvenile. You rape somebody, you're an adult. You shoot somebody, you're an adult.
Making it easier to criminalize young people as adults, to bring them into the adult system, and then to punish them for much longer sentences than they previously had been able to do.
Back then, when we had, let's knock some heads, throw them into jails, and arrest our way out of this problem mentality, what began to happen is that we just broom swept people into prisons, trying to give them longer and longer sentences. And what we discovered was when you create a vacuum, nature abhors a vacuum, and someone will fill it. So you're not going to arrest your way out of this problem.
You want me to put it in?
Yeah. Basically, the ingredients is green bananas, plantains, some roots, yautía, and we grind them down into a paste. And then we have over here the meat, or what we put inside of it.
When I die, they're gonna have to do this and continue.
We do it just for us, and a lot of people in Puerto Rican traditionally sell them to, friends, family, to other people. But no, we just do it for ourselves.
He was a good kid. 3 years old, he was always combing my hair when I come from work. Tell me he loved me, He was a good kid.
He was the joy, so to speak, the apple of my mom's eye when he was young, always loud, making noise, fussing with us. It was always interesting with Sammy when he was young. I mean, it was pretty fun.
Was a good student when I first started, had trouble here and there with, understanding. And then when I got to junior high, not too good. I had a girlfriend who I thought that had my child. So I was staying with her. I'm 16. The bills started coming in. And when they started collecting the medical bills and everything, like $5,000, $6,000 in the hole, and went for whatever I had to get. I went back to selling drugs. At that time, the neighborhood was in the Badlands. Probably y'all heard of it. But in the Badlands, real bad neighborhood, drugs, shootings, stabbings, people getting hurt.
The thing with Sammy was he was very trusting when he was small. Sammy was with friends that we didn't like. I didn't associate with his friends. They didn't associate with me.
Before I was Councilman Curtis Jones Jr., I was Turtle from 54th and Burke Street gang in West Philadelphia. And when I was coming up in the 80s, we fist fight. We created gang cultures that had a hierarchical system. One of the problems that inner cities have is density and the close proximity, one corner to another, one gang to another.
Customers that I had that I knew for a long time, I dealt with them for a long time, came through and he said, hey, I need this, and it was like $3,000 worth. You know, we was doing crack cocaine at that time. You know, one of the guys got greedy in the house. He's like, all right, he just paid $3,000. We're gonna take the money and then we're gonna take the drugs. And me arguing with them, no, this not gonna happen. It's not gonna transpire in this house. Whatever y'all do outside, y'all can do outside. But in here, it's not gonna happen because this is where everybody feels safe.
If he set up the meet with the other people involving a drug deal and one of his co-conspirators had a gun, he can be held liable for the actions of his co-conspirator under general conspiracy laws.
I'm a 16-year-old. I'm dealing with 27s, 37-year-old men. So listening to a kid, yeah, he's just a kid. And they wind up trying to shoot him. And the guy got shot with a 12-gauge shotgun, ripped mostly his insides. Here is where the body supposedly fell, on this corner. It's a garage now, but there used to be a lot. So he fell there and died in the hospital, Episcopal Hospital. I went running. And he was there for like 2 hours. And disappeared for like 2 weeks. And then I went to school. Out of all things, I wanted to go to school. Went to school and got arrested. They didn't believe that I was a juvenile. And I was like, look, I'm only 16. And they're like, we don't want to hear it. You're lying, your fingerprints say you this and that. I'm like, I'm only 16. And my mom finally showed up. She was hysterical, going crazy, because I'm like her baby, you know? And I went to the magistrate. The magistrate said, we're holding you for a general homicide. And that was the beginning.
Shocking to me, at 3 o'clock in the morning, they called me, the police, and told me that they had arrested my son. I said, what? But why? I didn't even know anything about what was going on. And I went to him and I was crying and I said, what's going on? He said, Mom, you don't understand, you know. I didn't understand, I really didn't. It was just, we've never been in this kind of problem before, you know. I raised them good. He kept crying, you know, I want to get out. I said, I know, I'm going to try to do all I can. I just didn't know how big the thing was, you know, this was, you know.
He was a little kid. I didn't think they were going to go, you know, like treat him like if he was a hardened criminal in the street that needed to get off the street. You know, I didn't believe that.
Then when we went to trial, and everything just seemed to go in slow motion. Like the jury, they seemed confused about the case, and I remember the judge. They wanted the judge to reread all the testimony from the case, and the judge was like, "No, you're supposed to take notes." So I remember that part stuck out in my head.
Going through this, like, this is reality. So I kind of started getting more into what's going on. Like, what are they talking about? Because I don't understand these words. I didn't even finish high school. The trial process was so bad, especially if you don't know nothing. What is second-degree murder? I didn't know.
One of the guys that was involved with that, he said that Sammy didn't have nothing to do with it, so we felt better because the guy said no, he didn't have nothing to do with this. But they killed him. So that was a mark for the district attorney to say he wanted life for him. To show an example to. But he didn't do it, you know. We have people that say, but, they wanted life for him.
So, jury came out. The judge asked me to stand up. He said, Mr. Gladden, can you please stand up? That you was found guilty by a jury of your peers and you're sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. They're not even my peers. How can they judge me? They're not my peers. My peers are juveniles.
I don't think it's appropriate under any circumstances, even in the case of a homicide. We're talking about kids, and kids, as the Supreme Court has recognized since 2005, kids are different. Their brains are different, their brains are less developed, they have less maturity, and they also have the possibility for reform and redemption. And a sentence of life without parole says to that child that you are forever banned from society. You have forfeited your right permanently, no matter what you do, no matter who you become, to ever walk amongst the free. That seems to me to be a little draconian.
That was pretty eye-opening for me of how they treated him, being that age, I know the severity of the crime, is difficult, but, still, I felt that part was wrong.
There was always a harsh sentences given to kids and just not enough therapy, if you want to say, or more encouragement, trying to help youths into better positions off the streets. And that wasn't there for Sammy.
The person that actually committed the homicide, he never got arrested. The one that initiated everything, he got arrested and got 6 to 12 years. I was the only one with a life sentence.
At that point, we weren't the same. We weren't that cheerful, outgoing. My mom was depressed a lot. We just took it, best way we could and tried to deal with it. But it seemed that as time went forward, Sam was by himself. I mean, everything, he was taking the blame for it.
Not a good place. First question never asked, where do you want your body bag sent? No respect, no nothing. All right, now that you're here, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna strip naked, take all your clothes off. Now you got a woman sitting right here. The man's telling me I gotta strip naked in front of a woman. Now, you have maybe 40, 50 guys behind you, standing, just watching. Go into the shower, start taking a shower. All of a sudden, a bucket full of powder is thrown on me. And he's like, now rinse off. Like, what is you doing? What is this stuff? It burns. Dry off with a towel, sit down. Where do you want your body bag sent? Question again. How you gonna tell a kid? He's gotta stop who he is and become somebody that he don't wanna be. The superintendent at that time was Vaughn, Donald Vaughn. And I think what he did was the best thing for him. Took me right into the school, signed me up for a GED, and sent me to work. I think my greatest change came when I met somebody, a friend of mine's, best friend, father figure, you could say, in prison, was Joseph Souder, from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, was sentenced to life imprisonment for arson. He saved my life, literally. We was never separated. Like, if I had to eat, he had to eat. If he had to eat, I had to eat. He had to drink, I had to drink. And we kept going like that. I did that with him for 20-something years, actually 26. He did it for 32. Yeah, 32. But yeah, he...
Did he keep you alive in this for 26 years?
You can say. I can say more than that. He kept me sane.
You were visiting him a lot when he was in prison, right?
Yeah, mom started first, and but it was really tough on her. She would come home crying. Sometimes her nose would bleed, and I started going with her, you know, for support.
I guess in the beginning it was a bit intimidating to know that your brother's living behind this, you know, walls and fence, and having also security guards, people with guns all the time. And it wasn't easy going in knowing that, you know, you got to put all your belongings away and you got to get scanned and searched, and then you only get contact with your brother in a room full of, you know, 100 people or other people that are there. So that wasn't easy. It's not easy driving away home, knowing that, you know, you're not going to be able to do anything to help get him out. It was very hurtful seeing your brother that's locked up. When you find something out like that, your heart's broken. You're feeling that, you know, forever you're now losing a little brother, that he was a good-hearted person and sharing life, and now all of a sudden you find out that he got involved and mixed in something that is now a life sentence.
The day I was in court when they told me I was released from prison, this day of realization that I was doing a life sentence. I did a life sentence, and now it's time to come home. That's when it hit.
People believe lock them up, throw away the key, but it was unconstitutional. Young people, their minds don't develop until they're 24. That is not an excuse to commit a crime, but it is consideration that should be given in a sentence that forever, ever shouldn't apply to a juvenile, because they change and they can, God forbid, be rehabilitated. And there should be an opportunity for them to come out and be a productive citizen. Yes, there should be a punishment. Yes, there should be a reasonable length of time, but that reasonable length of time becomes unreasonable when it is forever.
What was it like when you actually got home the first night?
Overwhelmed, claustrophobic, scary, still institutionalized. 3 o'clock in the morning, I sat in my bed trying to figure out how to make coffee. And not good, because, you know, you're still institutionalized. So I waited for somebody to tell me I can make coffee. Because how do you make coffee? And the realization is kicked in. My mom's down here at 6 in the morning making coffee. So I came downstairs. And she, you know, it hurt a little bit, but she was like, you don't never have to ask permission to make coffee. Just come down. But that was facts. You're scared. I was scared to come out that door. what happens is they waiting for me at the front door. Come out and they take me back to prison. This is your reality. You ain't supposed to be home. And it was like that for a couple of days. People don't understand, but it's a blessing. I never got to look over my shoulder. I'm legit. You know, I pay my taxes. I had to pay $51 for my taxes, which actually was like, hi, that's it? Like, I was locked up for 30 years. You only want $51, no problem. I went back to the old neighborhood where I first committed my crime. And who do I say sorry to? My wife, she's interesting, to say the least. Made it official through the Islamic community. And we've been together ever since. 30 years waiting to get married. So, I'm happy now.
It's so important to recognize how out of step the United States is with the rest of the world in terms of how we treat our youngest and most vulnerable offenders. We don't have to do it this way. There are other ways that we can mete out justice that are more fair, more responsible, more reasonable in light of what we now know about the juvenile mind. We don't have to be the most punitive jailer in the world. We can do better.
This is what we call prison life. Lived it, loved it, hated it. Now we're living a good life. So.